Hi, I'm Tommy.
And I'm Paul.
Welcome to our podcast, Dementia from the Inside Out. Hello everybody, and welcome to everyone around the world. I'm Tommy Dunn, and I'm living with Alzheimer's.
I'm Paul Hitchmo, also living with Alzheimer's.
So today we're going to be chatting about communication and dementia and some tips to help you communicate better with a person living with dementia. Difficulties with communication can be very upsetting and frustrating for the person living with dementia, but it can also be frustrating for those around them.
There's often a lack of communication between all agencies and involved parties in the care of people living with dementia. Better communication means better care.
Yeah, you should never be afraid to say, "I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you said." It's generally not right to mislead people, but always insisting on the truth may be unrealistic, so there is times for the case for deflection.
So how do you communicate with people with dementia or their carers and supporters on first hearing the news and beyond?
Yeah, well, somewhere along the journey, you're going to be repeatedly asked these questions. Who are you? I want to go home. Where's my mum and dad?
What's a good way to answer these questions then? What can you say to reassure and comfort the person?
Well, often the person living with dementia calls out for their mum and dad because they're looking for the presence of a parent to provide security and reassurance in an unfamiliar setting.
So if they ask where their parent is, you can truthfully say, "I'm not sure, I haven't seen him or her lately."
Yes, when you use validation, the person may be comforted just by talking about the parents that they are missing.
Avoid arguing about whether they are already home. Ask what home looks like. Reassure them of their safety. Try diverting the conversation. Keep a log of when they are asking to go home.
Yeah, you can ask these questions. What did your mum and dad look like? What was their favourite meal they cooked for you? What job did they used to do? What colour was their hair? What did you love about them? These are open questions and they should lead to a conversation.
Telling someone over and over again that their loved one is dead can potentially trigger the person to begin the grieving process all over again for the loss of the parent.
Yeah, so one of the hardest things that you're going to hear that you come across is when someone keeps saying to you, "Who are you?" The first time you hear this, you'll actually think they're joking.
Well, this can be very upsetting for the younger people to understand. For example, if a person in their teens, 20, 30s or 40, the people living with dementia might not recognise them at that age.
Yeah, they will remember them from when they were younger, from a different part of their memory. So communication is more than just verbal words. Communication in dementia can be a smile, a gentle touch, body language. But body language says a lot, so always show positive body language.
It's going to be hard to start a conversation with someone newly diagnosed because of the shock. When you are given a diagnosis and you first hear those words, "You've got dementia," you go into denial mode.
Yeah, so expect the person living with dementia to be very defensive and tell you, "You don't know what you're talking about." Although it may be tempting to go on with life as if nothing has happened, the implications of denial are serious.
If you don't accept it, you will allow denial as a foothold. Alzheimer's won't wait for you to accept it. After all, it's had years to sneak up on you, so it's very hard for your family to accept it.
Yeah, up to 42% of people living with early onset Alzheimer's disease have symptoms of anosognosia. And what that is that's the denial of a disability or an inability to see a problem that is obvious to everyone else.
You may need to start conversations with people living with dementia, especially if you notice that they're starting fewer conversations themselves.
Yeah, but keep your tone positive and friendly. Always use eye contact. When you tell people that you have dementia for the first time, you'll see a look of panic come over them because they've never have spoken to a person living with dementia before. and they get all tongue-tied. There are days when I've had to try to respond to a conversation, but my mind and my voice become frozen, and all that comes out is a slurred stammering.
There's nothing worse than knowing what you want to say, but the words won't come out. It's just so frustrating and belittling.
So when you're going to speak to a person living with dementia, always approach them from the front and always say who you are. Even if you're the spouse, daughter, son, get used to doing it now so they know you.
Never be afraid to laugh with a person living with dementia, as laughter can lighten any mood, help reduce stress, and even bring caregiver and patient a lot closer.
There's nothing so frustrating for a person living with dementia than people asking us, do you remember this, when, where, do you remember so-and-so? It drives us mad. It makes us aware of our condition all the time.
You can use pictures to help. A picture paints 1,000 words.
Yeah, saying to someone living with dementia, I've just told you that, only reminds the person of their condition, and it actually hurts us. Also saying to a person living with dementia, do you remember yesterday, etc., it's stressful because our short-term memory is a lot worse than our long-term memory.
Always let people living with dementia speak for themselves during discussions about their welfare or health issues, as they may not speak up for themselves in other situations. The trouble my peers and myself have is that people talk so fast when they are in a group, we have trouble following the conversation.
Yeah, you should never ever start a conversation with, remember when or what was the name of what's his name that used to work. You know, it really throws us when people ask what's your thoughts about it, and then before we say what we think, they answer.
Communication is a very important segment of every person's life. We use it actively to participate in society.
Dementia is a progressive illness that over time will affect a person's ability to remember and understand the very basic everyday facts such as names, dates and places.
Dementia will gradually affect the way a person communicates.
That's right. Dementia, such as the one resulting from Alzheimer's disease, involves progressive degradation of language function.
When communication with a person living with dementia always limits any potential distractions, TV, radio, etc., use your name and other people's names. Avoid overwhelming questions and be creative.
Only talk about one thing at a time. Speak naturally and use gestures. Use non-verbal cues and always be patient and avoid jumping in.
It's often necessary to adapt the way of communication to avoid stress and negative feelings to a person with dementia.
As we say, always approach a person with dementia from the front and make sure you look at the person when you're talking to them.
It's best if you engage the person in one-to-one conversation in a quiet space with minimal distractions.
Speak slowly and clearly, but not as if for babies. You know, as we've always said, maintain good eye contact.
Always give the person plenty of time to respond so that they can think about what to say. You'll have to get used to silence before an answer.
Yeah, if you're not comfortable with the silence and start to answer the question you've asked, then we lose the ability to answer it. It's use it or lose it.
It's very important to be patient and offer reassurance and only ask one question at a time.
I mean, when a person with dementia gets angry, you may think it's extreme, but it could be just your loved one trying to get their point across physically.
If people living with dementia can no longer express themselves easily in words, a banged table may just be a way of showing impatience or frustration.
Yeah, the visits will become better for you when you become more aware of non-verbal communication.
Having dementia is sometimes like when you're abroad, you can't read the road signs, you don't speak the language, so you can't ask a stranger for help as they may not understand and vice versa.
Remember that as people living with dementia, we are time travellers. We keep travelling to a time back in our past. Your skill is actually finding out where we are in that time. Yeah, as I said, a person with dementia may find it easier to remember and talk about things if they are shown photographs of objects.
People with dementia respond very well to children, so never feel that you should leave your child at home when planning a trip to a care home.
Using humour wherever possible, though not at their person's expense under no circumstances, because people will tend to retain their social skills and are usually delighted to laugh along with you.
Behaviour is triggered. It occurs for a reason. It might be something that the person did or said that triggered the behaviour or the change of physical environment.
A person with dementia may repeat a word, a statement, question or activity over and over. While harmless to the person with dementia, it can become annoying and stressful to the caregivers. But to us, living with dementia, it will actually feel as if it's the first time we've said it.
Communicating with a person living with dementia before you speak, when possible. If you are rushing or feeling stressed, try to take a calm moment for yourself.
Yeah, try and stay in the moment. Comment on things in the immediate environment. Look how pretty those flowers are. Things like that. And talk about one thing at a time.
Enjoy your time together, no matter what stage of dementia a person is in. There's still quality time to be had.
Yes, staying present in the moment, simple and upbeat, will maximise the time with the person.
Dementia can damage part of the brain that affects personality. It can cause people to act in ways that aren't morally or socially responsible.
And always remember that the focus should always be on the person living with dementia and not their disease. Be aware of your person's emotions and understanding.
Few people living with dementia go through experience of living with dementia without apparent anxiety, hardship, and fewer carers find the whole process becomes naturally.
To family carers, I always say, find time to relax yourself. Even a break of a few hours a week can make an enormous difference to you.
Remember limitations, but don't focus on them, and the time you spend will be less stressful and more enjoyable for all.
Be patient and remain calm. You can help the person communicate more easily. Keep your tone of voice positive and friendly, and where possible, talk to them at a respectable distance to avoid intimidating them. Being at the same level or lower as they are, for example, if they are sitting, get down to their level, and this can help.
Communication is a two-way process. As a carer of someone with dementia, you will probably have to learn and listen more carefully.
As well as difficulties with how they use words and language, people with dementia are likely to have sight or hearing problems, which can also make it very hard to communicate.
As more people begin to use smartphones and tablets, you might find that you and the person you care for communicate more through video calls.
So seeing your facial expressions and body language can be more helpful to a person with dementia than a telephone or a text message.
A person with dementia can often understand far more than they can communicate, so it's always best to try to involve them in your conversations.
Small changes in your approach can make a big difference. You could try stopping what you're doing and focusing entirely on the person.
Limiting distractions, saying their name when talking to them.
Touching their arm, if they feel comfortable with this, of course, and smiling.
Speaking slowly with clear, short sentences.
Using simple and straightforward language.
Listening carefully with empathy and understanding and giving the person lots of time to answer.
Maintaining appropriate eye contact, being pacific, for example. Try not to use pronouns such as he or she when talking about others. Use their name instead.
Using gestures to act out what you're saying. For example, by miming, drinking a cup of tea or putting on your shoes.
Use pictures to explain what you're saying, such as an image of a car or a photo of where you're going. Avoid open-ended questions or offering too many choices, though.
Using visual timetables where you use photos or images to show what will happen at various times of the day.
You could also ask the person, doctor or specialist, if a referral to a speech or language therapist could be beneficial.
If the person with dementia seems more confused than usual and is having more trouble communicating, it's a good idea to visit their GP.
Yeah, most people over 70 will have some hearing loss. They may consider themselves deaf. hard of hearing, or having acquired hearing loss. This may be due to age-related dementia damage to the ears, or other causes such as noise damage, infection, diseases, or injury.
People with hearing loss are likely to experience more difficulties as a result of their dementia. They may already find it harder to communicate. Not being able to hear what's going on around them or hear other people speak can add to their confusion.
Yeah, dementia and hearing loss can also make people feel socially isolated. So having both conditions at once can be very difficult for someone. This makes good communication even more important.
People with dementia can find it difficult to concentrate in any environment, including their own homes. If there's a lot of background noises, for example, a TV, radio, vacuum cleaner, traffic, then your chances of good communication are lessened.
Yes, removing or reducing distractions inside or outside the house will substantially improve your ability to communicate. You could try shutting windows to reduce the sounds from outside, or turning the television or radio off or down. Remembering, of course, to ask the person's permission to do so and explaining why it makes sense.
You are likely to be moving and talking at such a faster pace than the person with dementia. So when getting ready to have a good conversation, you need to be relaxed and slow down your pace.
Take a deep breath and exhale slowly. Relax any body tension you may be showing. Drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw and stretch out. Now think about what you're going to talk about.
Try to put yourself in their shoes or seat, what their emotional state is likely to be. Are they relaxed and happy, or anxious and distressed? Are they calm or frightened? Are they likely to respond to humour, or are they angry and frustrated? You may be aware what's been happening to them prior to your conversation. If not, try to find out so you can think about your approach.
Right. Short-term memory loss in a person with dementia can prove challenging for family and friends. So when providing care and support, while you see the person several times a day, each visit may feel like the first for them. This can have a great impact on the conversation, so consider how you would respond.
So the best approach for the care worker in these circumstances may be to introduce yourself on each visit and explain why you were there.
So always think beforehand how you're going to greet the person. Do they know who you are? Do they know you even though you know them? Well, think about whether you need to say your name or whether a warm hello will suffice.
A warm, friendly approach is important in creating a relaxed atmosphere for the conversation to start and develop.
Yeah, think about where the person is. What can they see from where they are standing or sitting? What were they doing? Are there any sight or hearing problems that will have a bearing on how you should approach them?
Generally, make sure the light is on your face rather than behind you to ensure you can be seen clearly. Aim for good eye contact. Coming in low at eye level if the person is seated will be less intimidating.
If the person is withdrawn, sitting alongside them and making some minimal movements and sound may be a gentler way of getting their attention rather than trying to strike up a conversation straight away.
How does the person look? What emotions are they showing? Being sensitive to the person's mood can offer an opportunity to begin a conversation. For example, if they appear to be happy, you could say, "You look happy today."
Does the person respond to a touch in a positive way? A light touch on the back of the hand can often feel reassuring and non-threatening. If the person moves their hand away from you, take your cue from them and be careful how you use that touch.
If the person takes the opportunity to clap your hand, this may be an indication that they need more physical reassurance and support.
With people who are looking quite withdrawn, a gentle touch on the cheek can be a way of getting them to look at you. Again, be sensitive to their reaction to the touch and take your lead from them.
So how is this person feeling? If they have been able to speak, what do the words convey? What does their tone of voice convey? What does the facial expression tell you? What does their body position tell you?
What does their respiration rate tell you? Is there any indication that the person is physically discomfort or in pain?
Observing the above will help family members, friends and care staff to achieve better understanding in the conversation. In dementia care, you need to listen with your eyes and your ears.
Yeah, people with dementia often lead very emotional lives. Anxiety and grief may be quite near to the surface. Don't shy away from tears. Stay with the person and offer them natural support.
You may not be able to fix the cause of anxiety or grief, but seeing this through with them and not being afraid will help them enormously.
You should never underestimate this.
Likewise, having a belly laugh together over something silly is a great way of getting to know each other.
Yeah, you have to listen with your eyes and your ears to how the person is feeling. A simple statement of what you've observed will let the person know that you know how they feel. For example, you could say, "You look a little sad now," or "You really look relaxed now, sitting there."
We often go into situations with set ideas of what we want to speak about or what we expect to hear, and we try to switch the conversation quickly to the topic we have in mind.
Yeah, at the beginning of communication, take your lead from the person with dementia. Don't try to switch topics too soon. And allow the conversation to develop. Give the person time to say what's on their mind. When the person says X, they might mean Y or Z or T.
Be aware that as word finding becomes more difficult for the person with dementia, the content of speech becomes more limited. So, for example, a female name such as Julie may come to represent every female helper rather than referring to Julie in person.
A reference to needing my mum may mean that the person is feeling scared and unattached rather than a literal question needing a literal.
The more you know about the key stories, people and themes of a person's life, the better you become at interpreting the meaning.
If you are puzzled by a response, think about what the person has been experienced before your conversation, and think about what you know about the person's past and see if you can make a better connection.
If you can catch a flavour or hint of what the person living with dementia is talking about and can latch onto that, often the person can pick up the pattern of the conversation.
Keep sentences short to make it easier for a person with dementia to know what you are saying. Be a good listener and give the person time to think and to respond.
So carers need to pay attention to how they present themselves to the person with dementia. The three factors that make up the messages we communicate are body language, the message we give out with our facial expressions, posture and gestures which account for 55% of communication, the tone and pitch of our voice, which accounts for 38% of our communication, and the words we use, which account for 7% of our communication.
Now, these statistics highlight the importance of how families and carers present themselves to a person living with dementia. Negative body language, such as sighs and raised eyebrows, can be easily picked up on.
There are a number of strategies or approaches you can use to communicate positively with a person with dementia, to make yourself understood and to show you care for them.
Look, losing the ability to communicate can be frustrating and difficult for people with dementia and their carers, families and carers.
Positive communication can help a person with dementia maintain their dignity and self-esteem.
A caring attitude, use of appropriate body language and maintaining the right environment are all important aspects of communication. Alternative communication approaches you could try include validation therapy, music therapy, reminiscence, and This Is Your Life book.
This Is Your Life or Memory book is a visual diary, similar to a family photo album. It can include letters, postcards, certificates, and all the other memorabilia.
A large photo album with plastic protective sheets over each page can withstand a lot of use. Each photograph needs to be labelled to avoid putting the person with dementia on the spot with questions such as, "Who is that?"
It's best to limit the information on each page to one topic and to have a maximum of 2 or 3 items on each page. That will help to prevent confusion. When you talk to a person with dementia, try to keep sentences short and simple, focusing on one idea at a time. Remain calm and talk in a gentle, matter-of-fact way.
Yeah, as we said, keep sentences short and simple, focusing on one idea at a time, and always allow plenty of time for what you have said to be understood. Use orientating names or labels wherever you can, such as your son, Peter.
You may need to use some hand gestures and facial expressions to make yourself understood. Pointing or demonstrating can help.
Yeah, touching and holding the person's hand may help keep their attention and show that you care. As we said, a warm smile and shared laughter can often communicate more than words can.
When communicating with a person with dementia, try not to argue with the person. It only makes the situation worse.
Never order the person round or tell the person what they can't do. Instead, state what they can do.
Never be condescending. A condescending tone of voice talking down to people may be picked up, even if the words are not understood.
And never ask a lot of direct questions that rely on good memory, or talk about people in front of them as if they're not there.
Activities that involve music are another effective way of communicating with a person who has dementia. Often when other skills have gone, the person can still enjoy the old familiar songs and tunes.
Yeah, a certain piece of music can unlock memories and feelings. It's important that it be prepared to respond to the release of these feelings.
Knowing a person's musical likes and dislikes is vital for this to be a successful approach. Music can be used as a formal therapy or simply for enjoyment.
It can also help in the management of difficult behaviours. Music therapy is having training in the use of music with people with dementia can address some very complex behaviours.
While many people with dementia may not always understand what is being said, they still have feelings and emotional responses, so it's important to maintain their dignity and self-esteem.
Just as you are prepared to start a conversation, you may think about how you will bring it to a close. So you've got to know how to start a conversation, and you've got to know how to bring it to a close. If you're leaving the person's home, make sure that you say goodbye. You should not leave the person thinking you are still in the home, perhaps in another room. This may cause confusion or anxiety.
Ensure you have their attention. Smile and let them know you enjoyed your time together and enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, shaking their hand or touching them is a common gesture which gives them a strong clue you are about to leave. Leave them reassured and let them know you will look forward to talking to them again.
If you're likely to be speaking to them very soon, for example, later that day, say that you will return and leave a note close by indicating when the next visit will be.
And on that note, we will bid you a farewell, so it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from him.
Play out with Brave New World.